Welcome to Break Free and Trust, a redesign for living. Join me, Chris.
And me, Jacqueline, for real conversations about life, death, and everything in between.
Learn to connect with your intrinsic power to grow and heal, how to laugh at your own humanness and not take life too seriously.
Through healthy conversations between the feminine and masculine, you learn how to harness the power of relationship and the mirror to befriend your shadow and to trust that any obstacle that gets in your way is there to help you grow.
Together, working at a practical level, you learn to trust that everything that is happening is for you, your growth, and ultimate freedom.
Our circumstances don't matter. It's only how we relate to them that does.
Get ready to befriend the wisdom of your body and the power of your mind.
Break Free and Trust starts now.
Welcome to Break Free and Trust, a redesign for living. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jacqueline.
All right, this show is going to be fun and unpredictable. It's a promise. I have asked Jacqueline to come up with a list of the top 5 things that a woman can do unconsciously to sabotage a relationship. And I came up with the same for men. We're actually going to unveil them to each other for the first time on the show. And we're drawing from both of our own years of lived experience of being deeply flawed romantic partners, as well as the extensive work we do with our clients in our private practice. What subtle unhealthy patterns of behavior can we fall into? If we identify these behaviors, can we take responsibility for them and thus acquire the agency for change? What does it mean to be a creator and be in service to our relationship? This and much more in the next hour. And as always, it's a live show. We'll be open to questions in the second half. So type your questions in the chat or call in at 1-800-930-2819. And before we start, I just want to apologize that audio is not as good as it usually is because we are traveling. And we've actually been on different trips and we've met up in sunny Miami for today's show. So with that, I'm going to throw you right into the fire by asking you, on your list of top 5 things women can do to unconsciously sabotage a relationship.
You want me to unveil all 5 of them?
No, just one. We're going to go back and forth, just one. One from you and then one from me.
Okay. I'm just going to go by, this is in no order of importance. So I'll start with the one that I wrote first. The first one that I wrote was micromanage. And control. So what that looks like for me is micromanaging looks like an issue around control and a need for things to be a certain way and an expectation that things look, unveil, move in a certain direction. And what that does to relationship from my standpoint is robs my partner of any level of agency, really sort of puts a big X through any kind of potency or sense of power, creates a tremendous amount of inequality in a marriage, and actually creates a dynamic of mother and child versus husband and wife.
Right.
And at the end of the day, ultimately, really creates a relationship where there's no real mutual respect, and without respect, there's no relationship.
Interesting. Can I ask you this? Do you see this as something that is a trait of the feminine? Is it something that shows up a lot with some of your clients, with things that you experience, or is this more of a personal you notice in your relationships?
That's a good question. I don't think in the past that I recognized that it showed up in my relationships. I think it did in part. But I think it's something that I actually see really commonly in a relationship that strikes me in a profound way, and I feel it viscerally. I see it in the way women treat their husbands. Oftentimes the feeling that I get in my body is like watching an owner with their dog, actually, instead of their partner who they love and respect.
And you're keying into this more now than you have in the past, like you see it now.
Yeah, well, I think I'm keying into a lot of these things more now than I ever did in the past because I'm living the healthiest relationship that I've ever had. And so it's much easier as a lot of these sort of behaviors fall away. And I experience what a healthy relationship looks and feels like. It's much easier to be able to see it.
And we talked about, the theme is unconscious behaviors. We're aware of the very conscious behaviors we can do to wreck relationships. So unconsciously when you're doing them, most likely think you're oriented with, this is helpful, I'm doing the right thing. But what's behind it? What's the driver behind the need to micromanage?
Fear.
Fear of what?
Lack of control. I think for a lot, I'm speaking for women, and I'm not speaking for all women.
No.
I'm really just speaking from my perspective. So take it or leave it. But I would say that if what I'm saying triggers you at all, it's a really great opportunity to sort of step back and take a good look at yourself and see if it's a behavior that you do unconsciously and you're not aware of. I think we do it unconsciously, and I think it's because of a lack of control. And when we feel like we have control over our environments, we tend to feel like we've lowered our anxiety.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is it a behavior that you've recognized in relationships that you've been in, or that you see in relationships around you?
To a certain extent, in relationships I've been in, yes and no. Not yes, but certainly in conversations with clients, that's something that shows up quite a bit as a differentiator between the masculine and feminine. Whereas, gosh, my wife's always trying to control things and whatnot.
And I think that's also when you hear my wife's always nagging me,
right,
or things like that. There is more and more, my awareness goes to, there's a heightened level of anxiety that leads to those behaviors. And it's actually not speaking to, I don't have respect. It doesn't start with, I don't have respect for my husband. It starts from an unconscious place of, I feel out of control. But it leads to a dynamic of absolute inequality, and it leads to a dynamic very much of mother and child, where a man actually stops feeling like a man, and a woman stops feeling like a woman. She starts feeling like a mother, and that creates a dynamic that, it's super unhealthy.
Yeah, and for sure. And one of the things that we're trying to do in this podcast, we're trying to look at our own side of the streets, in a sense. How have you shifted and changed that, or what advice should you give to someone who's looking at that? That might be me.
I think it's a hard thing to see when you're in it. When I look back at some of my past relationships, I can't believe I'm about to say this on air, but here's for transparency and vulnerability. I think I was really castrated. I think that I was castrating from the standpoint of, I knew the right way to do things. And that's the way things were going to go. And that came from a very old place of me needing to feel like I had control over my environment because I felt scared. And what I would say is that once you've been able to identify it, question, actually, I'm not sure I know the answer to that. If you see yourself in relationship in that pattern, one of the things that I would ask myself is this honoring of my partner? And if the answer is no, then I would step back and actually take a few deep breaths and ask myself, what is driving my behavior? Because at the end of the day, we want to be in relationship with partners who feel like they're our equals. And that kind of dynamic doesn't create equality on any level. Outside of that, it involves doing a lot of shadow work. So I don't think there's not a simple answer to it.
But you said something in there too I think it's going to end up being a theme in all this, is like when you're taking that role of directing and controlling, we're in the drama triangle, and we did a show on this a number of months ago. But taking that role of the sort of the persecutor or the rescuer, versus that's sort of a disempowering standpoint. If you want a relationship to be a co-creation, take a different stance.
So here, I have an answer to your question.
Yes, okay.
I think that we often find ourselves in a relationship with people where there is inherently a power differential. And we find those relationships because we don't feel very powerful. And so we find people that we can feel like we have power over. The challenge with that is that there's no growth in that kind of relationship, ever. And so I can tell you, for me, for a very long time, I had a mentor teacher who was asking me if I was ready for divine union. And for whatever reason, my response to that was a big no thank you. And it was only when I met you and we started a relationship that I was really able to see why. And that's because when there is no power differential in a relationship, you really have to take a good look at yourself. And when you have to take a good look at yourself, you don't get to project outward what it is you can't control on the inside. You have to actually look at yourself on the inside and start to do the work.
So yeah, that behavior is it's the symptom of some type of a power imbalance that needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So this whole podcast, by the way, I was put on the spot for, so I have no idea where this is going. But should we go with your number one?
Yeah, mine is it's an interesting one. It's a very 3D one, so to speak, and it's one that totally I resonate with in the earlier part of my life, and many men I talk to resonate with this one. Overly elevating the role of physical sex in the relationship and holding onto the story that I have special needs and I'm different and my sex drive is greater than other men.
You're just going.
I'm going right in there. Right? And it's this idea that it's not enough sex, not the right kind of sex, not at the right times, all of that, or it's change in the relationship. And I think I'm certainly guilty of this in the past, and many men I talk to, they've ranked that as the number one issue, that they made the number one issue in their marriage. It's not the number one issue, but it's the number one issue they brought up.
And why do you think that is?
I think in a large part, it's a way men feel validated in their masculinity, in their relationship, and being needed is through that physical contact. And so it's
being needed or being wanted.
Being wanted and being needed. And I think we tend to see it as we framed it as a need for ourselves, and that need may lead to being wanted, being worthy, being enough. All the limiting beliefs that I've run with. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy of love. I don't belong here. All of a sudden, if my romantic partner wants to have physical contact with me all the time, it's placating all those fears, but they're my fears.
It's interesting because in a lot of ways, sex is performative, right? It's almost a way to hide behind vulnerability. It makes me feel manly. It makes you feel important. It makes you feel like you have power.
Mm-hmm. It's a doing. It's not a being, and it can be dominating. And it's interesting because obviously love is important for sex, and sex is important to love. They're all related. But I think as soon, talking from my own experience, as soon as it becomes a need, it becomes an entitlement, and it becomes a control factor.
It also becomes really unattractive.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the other side of that look like?
Not wanting to come to bed at night. Feeling a lack of intimacy because everything feels sexual. I actually think it destroys intimacy.
It's a relationship killer. Yeah.
Yeah, in a big way.
Yeah, it's very, again, I couldn't see it before, but I can clearly see it now. It creates resentment, loss of intimacy, lack of connection, feeling like you're being controlled, probably leading to some of the behaviors you're talking about earlier.
It's interesting. I don't know that I would say feeling like I'm being controlled. I think the way that lands in my body is a deep neediness that actually doesn't feel like my man, but it feels like a little boy.
That ever interesting.
And that's a huge turnoff. I can't believe we're having this conversation. Yeah, a huge turnoff. And for those of you women listening, there's nothing more exciting than wanting to create a scene or whatever for sexual intimacy to exist. And in the presence of that kind of energy, there's nothing I would rather do than check out completely or pretend to be asleep.
Right. That's, again, we had no idea what each other were going to say, and that's a real insight about that neediness thing. I hadn't arrived at that on my own. So men out there, listen up. That's if you resonate with what I've talked about, and that's what's showing up with you in your relationship with resentments and needs and whatnot. Recognize we're coming across as needy and weak.
Well, what it comes across as in some ways is vampiric. Like there's I need to take something from you in order for me to feel powerful.
Yeah.
And there's definitely nothing attractive about that. Intimacy should be about giving.
Yeah.
Not about taking.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think again, it's like how to shift it. My thoughts on it are, if you can move it, just even reframing things has a profound effect. Reframing it from a need to an expression of a healthy relationship. Transform whatever. Do your shadow work and transform that frustration or resentment into a willingness to deepen relationship, deepen the connection with my partner. See that as a sit. Maybe if it's not happening as much as one wants, see that as a symptom of there's something more profound going on with the relationship that needs addressing, not through physical activity.
Well, and probably there's a stagnation in your levels of creativity that aren't getting expressed in any other way. And so the imbalance of creativity is an imbalanced sexuality.
Right. It's trying to be released that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2.
I have to read my notes. Saying yes when you mean no. So saying yes when this is coming from a consummate people pleaser. Doing things that you don't want to do. And I'm not referring sexually, but I suppose that could include sexually as well. Because you think it's going to please your partner, or you think it's because it's because of what it is, what your partner, you think it's what your partner wants. It sets false expectations. It builds tremendous resentment. If I start saying yes when I mean no, and I'm violating my own boundaries over and over again, the person that I actually am showing a lack of integrity to is myself, but ultimately that will get projected onto my partner. That's tremendous resentment. It also assumes that relationships are about self-sacrifice and compromise. And Chris and I have both really come to this place where we don't see it that way at all. Relationships are meant to be about mutual respect. And we're meant to tend to ourselves and nurture one another from a place of wholeness, not from a place of emptiness. How's that line for you?
Yeah. That's cool. And how do you, and so again, what's behind it?
I'm not worthy. A feeling of not being good enough. A feeling of not being of value unless I am pleasing somebody else or taking care of somebody else's needs. It's not okay for me to look out for myself. Because if I do, then I'm being selfish. Rather than recognizing that in taking care of myself, I'm actually taking care of our relationship.
And I think it's one of those that, this limiting belief or belief of I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy of love that drives this. It shows up in all of us in some less, some more, but it's behind a lot of behaviors until we really see it and look at it. And ask yourself, is that what's happening here?
And especially for those of you that are beginning relationships, the opportunity to be able to create a strong foundation built on mutual respect, it necessitates each of you managing your own boundaries, because nobody's going to do that for you. If you say yes to going on a hiking trip when you hate hiking, what you're putting out there is he gets to ask you again and you're going to go again, instead of being able to actually recognize that perhaps he might enjoy going hiking without you, so you can tend to yourself. It creates a false set of expectations and real mixed messages in a relationship, because ultimately we're lying to each other and lying to ourselves when we say yes, when we.
And there's a great hack for this, in a sense, or a reframe where it's when you do something that your partner asks to do, it's you can change it from yes to I want to do it, or am I willing to do it? And that can clarify a lot of this in a certain sense. Yeah, there's some things that I definitely want to do with you.
It's the wheel of consent.
The wheel of consent. But there's some things that I know it's really important to you. Like, I'm willing to do it if you want me to do it, but I don't, it's not my favorite thing. And then you can decide.
But even in that, it's really important to be able to know that it's okay. If your partner doesn't want to do something, but they let you know that they're willing to do it because it makes you happy, then it's okay to say yes to that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if they're willing to, which means they're not actually violating their boundaries, and you create, communication around this, like, yes, I'm into it, or I'm willing to do it, or no, I'm not interested. If they're willing to do it, the potential is that they might actually really enjoy it. And it's also a way for us to be able to care about each other, right? Is to do for and with each other things that our partners enjoy that we might not love, but we don't have a problem doing, right?
It made me laugh. I remember you came to a rave with me last month. You were willing to do that, right?
I was willing to do that. Yeah.
We had fun.
Just like you're willing sometimes to watch romantic comedies with me.
It's true. I'm absolutely willing.
Okay, what's yours?
Taking things for granted and believing that a relationship will thrive without working at it every single day. I think it's a big revelation for me that took me, 50 years to figure out. And it just, when I think about it, I just think of the amount of work that, I put in when I'm, first trying to lure a partner or date a partner or get them interested in me. And then it's almost like this, I don't know if this is a male thing or a female thing, but it's like, it gets locked down, you get married, and that's it. It's like the work and the effort, all these things goes away. And change is the only constant in life. And if you don't do it together, what's going to happen is inevitably it's going to move in different directions. I think that's what happens in a lot of relationships. And I have this, I don't know how many times my clients have said to me, well, I didn't change, she changed. I just looked at them and said, well, she was supposed to change. And so were you. You just didn't change together. So what do you do about it?
I almost want to take you back to what you said before about taking things for granted.
Yeah.
Because that's not really about change. That's about taking your partner for granted. So you work really hard in order to close the deal. And once the deal is closed, what happens that has that stop? Complacency.
I mean, I think in there, if you want to go back to that, there's a couple things that happen. One's physiological, right? One's there's this increased excitement that's related to actually that whole process. That then that shifts and it goes into more of a steady state. And then I think that taking things for granted is probably related to the fact that when you're first courting and it's all the excitement, all the hormones are going, the lust is all there, that sort of puppy love's there, that the resentments, the little things that they feel the other partner's not doing for you don't show up. But with time, those things show up. And if someone takes those things, or if I take those things and I make them the center point of what I'm looking at, and glossing over the 95% of stuff that's great, looking at the 5%, that resentment is going to build up. And suddenly all the things that I was doing before is going to shift because I'm worried about what am I not getting from this, and not thinking, well, what can I give? How does that land?
It doesn't really.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear you, but I don't. I think the point that you're making with that isn't coming through completely, which is that a relationship isn't going to thrive without working on it every day.
Yeah.
And taking each other for granted, meaning not nurturing and feeding each other on a consistent basis, means that a relationship is going to fall apart the same way a fire does if it doesn't get tended. Right. So how have you learned to tend that fire on a daily basis?
Yeah, it's kind of the framing and putting it front and center that this relationship is an organic, moving system, and if it's just left stagnant, it will die like a tended fire. And so, every day, asking myself, what is it I can do today to work on or to strengthen my connection to my partner, and do my best to drop and not fall into my self-centered needs about what am I not getting. It's moving from this place of self-centered to us-centered, a we-centered mentality.
All the while making sure that your needs are being met.
Yeah.
By you.
It's that balancing act.
So it's the difference between the idea that we spoke about in the previous podcast of 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah.
And so tending to the relationship every day is a requirement, but that also requires that each one of us tends to ourselves.
Yeah, it's the balance. We're this theme of drama, where there's a persecutor, a victim, and a rescuer, versus creation. How am I co-creating my relationship today? What's the role I'm playing in it? Am I empowering my relationship versus thinking about myself and my needs and what I need solely?
It sounds like another piece of that is sort of checking in with ourselves on a daily basis and saying, how did I express to my partner that they were of value today and that they meant? And if I didn't, how do I close the day by doing that?
That's a great add-on. Yeah. I'm guessing if we did that every day, or listeners did that every day, their relationship would transform.
We do that every day. But only because of all the mistakes that we've made in the past. So what I'm hearing in that actually is that acknowledgement of the other person is an incredible way to be able to make sure that we don't take each other for granted. And it doesn't mean acknowledging the bigger picture necessarily. Sometimes it's just about acknowledging the small things.
Yeah. And if I look back at my past relationships, there's probably there's an imbalance between criticism and acknowledgement in the past, and that's probably fairly typical. Why don't we stop there? Why don't we take a break there, and when we come back, we'll get to the rest of our lists.
Tune in to Break Free and Trust, a redesign for living, with me, Jacqueline.
And me, Chris, on Transformation Talk Radio, every second and fourth Monday at 3 p.m.
Learn to connect with your intrinsic power to grow and to heal, and how to laugh at your own humanness and not take life too seriously.
Witness the field of potential that arises when you take personal responsibility and become the divine creator in your own life.
Visit theway-healing.com for more information.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? A sign, a presence, a knowing that left you changed, but unsure who would understand? I'm Gina Gale Gray, and Weird Real Life Stories is more than a show. It's a sacred space to explore the mystical, the mysterious, and the deeply personal. Each episode features true tales that awaken intuition, validate soul signs, and open hearts. And now I want to hear your story. Visit anywheremindbodysoul.com to send me a request to share your experience on this show, or discover how we can work together to explore the meaning behind it. Tune in every first and third Wednesday at noon Pacific. Let's explore this mystery together. And if you're ready to go even deeper, my channeled book with my son Spencer, Listen to the Silence, Messages and Miracles from Spencer Who Never Spoke Words, is waiting for you at listentothesilence.org.
We remember a time when you could simply form a thought and it would manifest. The harmony was forgotten, but it is returning now. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia will take you on adventures through the heart and spirit, exploring who we once were and how to awaken that power today. Julia studied under the guidance of wolves, learning from their wisdom to master a higher frequency for new state of mind. Learn to master the secrets of manifestation. Visit onetrueself.com.
What if healing didn't have to be heavy? Welcome to The Funny Kind with Erica Gummany, the show that brings heart, humor, and hope to everyday life. Part deep dive, part stand up for the soul. Erica helps you find the funny, even in life's messiest moments. Because growth is good, but it doesn't have to be so serious. Tune into The Funny Kind and get ready to laugh, reflect, and reconnect with the extraordinary human you already are. Catch every episode and connect with Erica at yourpivotalpoint.com.
And we are back. All right, continuing on with our lists. Jacqueline, number 3.
Expect him to read your mind. So
You know I can, right?
no, you can't.
No, I definitely can.
So this whole idea that he can read your needs, he can read your mind, he knows exactly what's going on, and he's going to meet those needs, is a recipe for disaster. We all see the world through the lens of our own experiences, and our experiences are entirely different. And the way we take in the world is entirely different. And one of the things that I've learned, and it took me a long time to learn it, was to be able to value myself enough to be able to ask for what I need. And to speak it really vulnerably and honestly. Now, I have to say I got lucky because I have a partner who makes me feel really safe. But I think one of the ways that we build trust with ourselves and our own bodies is by being able to speak our truth and find our voice. And also, in doing so, we also give our partner the possibility of being able to ask for their own needs to be met as well. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned through this process is that your partner can't read your mind, but when you ask for what it is you need, or you share what's on your mind in a given, you can tell a lot about your relationship by how your partner responds. So one of the greatest things about my partner is that he definitely can't read my mind. I'm deeply emotional. He's incredibly cerebral. But when I do ask, or I do share what's on my mind with you, or I ask for a need to be met, without fail, you seem to work. It's like the snap of a fingers, and you work really hard to be able to meet it in a way that's in alignment with you. And what I've watched is that in a really loving relationship, that's what we do for each other, right? We want to tend to each other and care for each other if we can, if it's in alignment with who we are, even if it means stretching a little bit. And when our partners don't hear us, that's a recipe for me, or that's a sign for me that something's off.
I'm curious, and I appreciate the phrase for creating that container for you to do that.
So I wouldn't say that's not praise.
Okay.
That's acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement. So acknowledgement.
There's a difference there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it relates to the question is that you're in this place where you feel safer to do that. And it may have something to do with me, or it may have something just to do with the work you've done in your life. In your past relationships, did you ask? Did you state your needs?
No, I was just really disappointed that they weren't met.
Right. And why didn't you?
Because I was under the assumption that my partner should be able to read my mind.
What do you think would have happened? And this is all conjecture. What do you think would have happened had you
The truth is, I can't go back,
Right. Yeah.
and I really wouldn't want to. But I know that I would never go back to a place of not being able to speak them. And I think what you bring up is a really important piece, which is that you do create a level of safety, but the biggest level of safety is inside of me. And that level of safety is,
That's what I was going for.
it's really important for me to be able to ask. I'm responsible for me, which means that if I have a need, it's incumbent upon me to be able to ask for it, or I'm not taking care of myself. And when I can model that to you, I share something with you that you can then also take into your relationship with me, which is, it's fair to ask, right? Like, and I actually think it's important that we do that, because we teach each other through that process.
There's the reading of the mind aspect, so that's a false belief. Is there also a fear that what if you ask and your partner says no? Then what?
So I don't know that that was one of my fears.
Yeah.
But I think that's absolutely a
Yeah.
fear
Then
that
what do you
exists.
do?
Right. But that in and of itself is an incredible opportunity to be able to take a good look at your relationship. If you're able to share something that's incredibly important to you, and your partner is unwilling to meet it or hear it or deflects it back or gets defensive or attacks or does whatever it is that they do, you have to stop and really ask yourself, is this the way that I want to be interacting? And is this a relationship for me? And I think one of the reasons that we don't do those things is because we're afraid that our needs won't be met or our partners are unwilling. And what does that actually mean? Does that mean that I'm not worthy of them being met? Or does that mean that I'm maybe not with the right partner? And both of those questions are questions that are really hard to ask ourselves, because it means that we're having a real moment of calling something really important into question, and we don't like to do that.
Yeah. Again, that belief system of I'm not worthy. I'm going to be that can hold us back until we see it.
Or fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. All of those things are going to lead to behaviors where we don't ask for our needs to be met.
Yeah.
But the more I work with women, and the more women are able to actually voice their needs from the standpoint of not something that you're doing wrong, but something that I need internally for me, the more relationships actually begin to flourish. And the thought process of I'm not worthy begins to get extinguished.
Yep.
But it takes practice. None of these things happen overnight. I mean, I think the first time I ever asked you for something that was really vulnerable for me, I probably thought about it for weeks before I spoke it.
Yeah.
Now I think about it for 2 minutes.
Yeah. It's the practice, that ingrained limiting belief that's been running in a loop. If it's saying I'm not enough or I'm not worthy, it's like we have to actively override it with new thought patterns that no, I am worthy. Yes, I am enough. And like practicing it, repeating it to ourselves, engaging in things and looking back saying, yeah, I'm absolutely worthy of having my needs met, and here's why.
Absolutely.
All right, I was going back and forth when I just wanted to do next because they both relate to what you said, but I'm going to go to this one. It's a big one for me, and particularly for male clients. Not making the effort or taking the time to recognize the differences between the masculine and the feminine. And what I mean by that is in any study that's looked at how we select our peer groups, without fail, we tend to select our peer groups people that look like us. They tend to have same values, often speak the same language, just have a lot of similarities. Men and women actually have completely different brain chemistries. Based on these studies, men and women would never get together. They would never form groups based on how different they are in terms of brain chemistry. And this goes into assuming that our partner thinks the same way as we do, and that their feelings work the same way as ours. It's so off the mark. and it will just lead us to all sorts of issues. And there's a real starting point. Like everyone's different. Everyone has their own subjective things, but there's a big common factor that relates men and that relates women in terms of seeing how they may approach the world. There's some patterning, and there's some sort of rules of thumb that would be extremely helpful in a relationship. And that there's many, but the one that I want to highlight is the one that shows up the most in the work I have with clients. Is men, the masculine, tend to, as a generalization, build their subjective reality based on experience, extrapolation, and accomplishment. The feminine, as a generalization, tends to build their subjective reality on how they feel. And those two things can lead to very drastically different analysis of what's happening. The exact same scenario is subjectively interpreted entirely differently. And if there's not that base understanding in the relationship, it can lead to all sorts of arguments, problems, resentments, and lack of connection.
Yeah. So I first want to say something, because I think that it's really important that we create a differentiation here. We're talking about the masculine and feminine, not necessarily men and women.
Correct.
So, I just came back from visiting my son at university, and one of his best friends is a girl who sees the world from the very same way that my son sees the world. And it defines everything that you just spoke about in terms of the masculine. So not all women are more heavily focused on their emotion, although most women may be. And not all men are built more from the logical experience sort of mindset. Fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And we all have, every human has a balance of the masculine and the feminine, and it's just different in everybody. Now, there's not two people on earth that have the same balance, so it is very bespoke.
So if we're going to speak not in generalizations, what we're going to speak to is the idea that you need to know your partner and how they see the world and how they process their reality. And if we fit into those generalizations, the two of us. So how does knowing that I see the world from a more emotional standpoint impact the way in which you relate to me?
I'll give you an example. And it's sort of like it sort of did happen, but slightly different. I can't remember the exact thing, but for instance, I cleaned out the garage, and I spent a whole bunch of time doing it, and it needed to get done. I knew it was something you wanted done, and I did all this work, and then all the masculine in me wanted to be validated for the work I've done. That's the way I see the world. It's, look how great this looks, and I've done work. I want to be validated. And you came in, looked around, and rightly noticed, hey, there's a couple things that haven't been done yet, and pointed those things out. But again, and in the moment, I was like, I could feel it boil up in me. Like, that's not what I was looking for. Don't you know that I did this? But because I've gone down this path, and explored this, I recognize, oh, absolutely right. Jacqueline's walking the garage. She knows it's done, but she feels it's incomplete. And she's just sharing it's incomplete. Now, the outcome of that is it was incomplete. I had missed that thing because I tend to do that. I'm not very detail oriented. And as a result, we actually got a cleaner garage got done. And then you actually acknowledge it later. But in that moment, that's a micro example of where things can go completely haywire in a relationship. When someone wants to be validated and the other person's pointing out what's not that's done. It creates all sorts of resentments that may never get resolved, and that could be anything from cleaning the kitchen or all sorts of things, or anything in life. That's a real simple example, but it can perpetuate in a relationship.
Can you think of another example with a client that speaks a little more deeply to that?
Yeah, like a client, for instance, that there's like a relationship where he tends to be the one who has the full-time 50, 60-hour-a-week job. She tends to just a stay-at-home mother, busy lifestyle and stuff like that. And he'll relate to me all that's ever happening when he goes home is it's being pointed out where he's not showing up in terms of doing the right thing for the kids, or he's missing this here. It's never being validated for, wait, worked all week, I've done this, I've done all these other things, and all that's being pointed out is the one or two things that I didn't quite get to.
So I hear the criticism in that, But I don't hear the difference between the emotional, like the emotional way of seeing the world or of relating to the world, and the pragmatic way of looking at the world and seeing the world.
The pragmatic is 95% of the stuff is done. The emotional is it's not complete. And I'm feeling it incomplete. I'm feeling everything's not complete. And that evokes emotion of we need to do something. That's how I would see it, whether I'm right or not.
I think that one needs further development on some level in terms of an explanation, because I'm not totally getting it,
right,
to be honest with you. Like, I'm hearing the examples are making a lot of sense to me, but in terms of recognizing, I don't think that the feminine really is just about feeling things are incomplete or feeling like things aren't done properly.
No, and I'm not saying it always is. It's at times it can be, is all I'm saying. And those little times, for instance, that like the garage example, that in those little times where that shows up, that can create a tremendous amount of resentment from masculine. A tremendous amount.
What I hear in that on some levels is this idea of the different languages of love that we have.
Yeah.
And so one of the languages of love that you're speaking to is this idea of acts of service. And if a partner doesn't feel like acts of service are an expression of love, then she's just going to go and look and see what's done wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas what she might want is time with.
It can relate into that too. Like that intersects with it.
Do you have more you want to say about that one?
No, I think maybe again, because we're flushing this one out. I'd say the main point I want to make is the higher level. Take an effort to try to understand about how your partner, how their operating system works, how they think, how they tend to respond in situations. So maybe it's less about recognizing the difference between the masculine and feminine, just more is take the time to figure out, oh, this is how they tend to operate these environments, and accept it.
So it's coming up, it's interesting. What's coming up is an example of something you and I have talked about before, which is this idea of, of how do we express love? We've had that conversation. And one of the things that you've shared with me is one of the things that is huge for you is time together.
Yeah.
And so taking an example like cleaning the garage, one of the things that you've expressed to me is, I want to do that with you.
Yeah.
Right. Time spent together doing that. And for me, time spent together is far more important than the act of you cleaning the garage. And so being able to actually understand where that comes from probably creates a tremendous amount of difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That over to you.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest ones, and I don't want to miss the last one, but we may not have time for it, but I think one of the biggest ones is recognizing that throughout our lives, we have inevitably, through our bumps and bruises, through our own core wounding, through our own childhood experiences, we all have armor that we have put on, that we wear on a daily basis, that we think protects us from the world and ultimately does really protect us from the world, but it also prevents us from being seen fully. And what that armor actually does is leads us to defend ourselves or attack our partners when we feel vulnerable or we feel scared. And what happens when we do that is we create an environment for ourselves and our partners that isn't very safe for vulnerability to show up. And one of the most important things in relationship is that relationship actually creates a really safe container for us to begin to unwind those old stories and that old armor, so that we can essentially, and I'm putting this in quotation marks, but get naked and be real with each other so that we can heal those things that we've been carrying throughout our lives and actually transform them. And so really, I think one of the biggest killers in relationships is our projecting outward what feels uncomfortable on the inside. So what I mean by that is when I feel uncomfortable or I feel vulnerable, rather than being able to actually speak with transparency, what's happening for me, I didn't like that, or that didn't feel very good for me. I attack you, or I defend myself. And what that creates is an environment of conflict, which actually in and of itself feels very unsafe. And if we can recognize that ultimately in relationship, what we're looking for is to be seen, to be understood, to be heard. But that's true for our partner too. And we can start to interact with each other differently, where, as an example, if I say something that heightens your reactivity, then it's on me to recognize that I've triggered something, and that when I trigger something, you're not going to respond to me beautifully. You might respond to me reactively, and that reaction is your armor coming back and attacking or defending yourself because mind has put itself up there. And being able to find a way to dance with that, where we get to the heart of what's really going on.
Yeah, and it's interesting. That was my next one as well. It's very similar to that. And you and I have very early in our relationship, we recognize that, and we actually have a rule that if either one of us notices the other one's triggered, it's the person who's not triggered responsibility to end the conversation, create a cool up period. I think the only times, like a couple of times, we've had really bad arguments and we were both triggered simultaneously and neither one could recognize it, so that it runs its course. But it's far and few between because we recognize this.
Yeah. And I think, I was talking to you today about this podcast that I was listening to with Dr. Arya. And he speaks to some of this work really beautifully, where, if one person in a relationship is not behaving the way that we want or need them to behave, it's likely that we've done something that's created a lack of safety, and that it's our job, if we love each other, to bring a relationship back to a place of safety.
Of Course in Miracles, that's just the main saying I've taken out of it, and mantra is all attacks are a cry for love.
Yeah.
It's ultimately are, and if we can, again, you're coming from the place of like, if I'm attacking, what's going on with me, but from the other side of it, it's like, okay, I don't want to defend this, and I certainly don't want to attack back. What I'm hearing is a cry for love, and even if some of these things feels like attacks or criticism, if we can take this sort of higher consciousness view that my partner's my mirror, and whatever they're saying to me, it's a mirror from which I can grow from, in which I can learn from. And I know we're running out of time.
I know.
And it's a deeper topic.
But I think that's a topic. I think that conversation about a mirror is something that we come back to.
Yeah.
Because it's true, we are all really just mirrors for each other and for each other's growth. And if we can take personal responsibility for ourselves in relationship, and then take time to take responsibility also for the relationship as a whole, we can create partnerships that actually raise our consciousness rather than pulling us back down.
Yeah, and that was sort of the point. If there's a point to this whole podcast and why we're talking about, what we're doing in our own relationships subconsciously, and how we can shift that and change that to have a healthy relationship, it's because from the yogic science perspective, relationship is one of the 4 paths to enlightenment, for lack of a better word, and higher consciousness. It's using your partner as your ultimate divine mirror is the greatest way to sort of outgrow your ego and move higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who knows, if this topic is interesting to you, let us know so that we can continue it on our next podcast.
Right.
Have a great couple weeks. See you soon.
You've been listening to me, Chris.
And me, Jacqueline, on Break Free and Trust, a redesign for living.
Tune in every second and fourth Monday at 3 p.m. on Transformation Talk Radio for more real conversations about life, death, and everything in between.
Learn to connect with your intrinsic power to grow and heal, how to laugh at your own humanness and not take life too seriously.
Through healthy conversations between the feminine and the masculine, you will learn how to harness the power of relationship and the mirror to befriend your shadow, and to trust that any obstacle that gets in your way is there to help you grow.
For more information or to connect with us personally, visit theway-healing.com. That's theway-healing.com.